hello and welcome to another podcast special, which is going to be a little bit different. And that's because I'm going to talk about something that was before I even realised that mortgages was a thing. There is a special guest who I'm going to introduce in just a second, but just to give you guys a little bit of context, during lockdown, as in COVID, as in that time when most people's lives felt like they were up the wall, I hit a little bit of a wall from an employment perspective, or I guess like a whole life perspective. I didn't really know where I was meant to be going. I felt a little bit lost, just like everybody else. I decided to book in a couple of sessions with a life coach. The life coach also happened to be my sister, which was handy for me because support network was really good. And one of the first sessions that we had together, Sam, who I'll introduce in a second, said to me, "Charlotte, what does your dream day look like?" And I said, "I don't know what you mean." And she said, "Well, what does your dream day look like? Like, if nothing was an issue and nothing was a barrier, how would your day pan out?" So I thought about it and I explained what my dream day looked like. And it hit me like a ton of bricks that the fact that I was working 9 to 5 in an office was actually the biggest barrier that I had. That was the thing that instigated for me to look at a different career. And that's how I then ended up switching to a remote role and then finding out about mortgages because that remote role was in a mortgage broker. And then after a couple more sessions after that massive switch, what I realised was actually the next biggest blocker was my income because I couldn't achieve all the things that I wanted to with the money that I was on. And that's how I ended up wanting to do CMAP. But my biggest barrier was that I had always been shocking at exams. I had really bad exam anxiety. They used to put me in a separate room for my GCSEs and anything that I did at uni because there was a good chance of a meltdown. So that was what I ended up working with Sam on. All in the meantime, Sam had actually trained to become an anxiety coach as well. So it almost shifted from like life coaching to like, okay, how do we get you through those exams? And I think that's probably a long-winded introduction, but that's how I wanted to introduce Sam, my sister. Hello, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm good, thank you.
Thank you so much for being on this episode. I know I had to kind of guide you into it a little bit because you're feeling a little bit nervous, but please don't be nervous. There are so many of my students that I have passed on to you that it felt criminal not for us to do an episode together.
Yeah, thank you so much for the great introduction.
You are very welcome. I think my first question is, can you explain what, I guess, exam anxiety is? Why is it different from just nerves? Because everybody has exam nerves, and I would say maybe that's a good thing. How does somebody know if they're just nervous for an exam versus do they actually have exam anxiety?
So exam anxiety is when you feel worried about an upcoming exam. So it's not different than normal nerves. It's just that you've got the nerves because of the exam. Some people get it a lot worse than others. It can manifest itself in negative thoughts about the exam itself or the exam result. And it can also manifest as physical symptoms like feeling sick, shaking, upset stomach, feeling dizzy and things like that. Everyone experiences it at different levels and different symptoms. It, like I said, it just feels exactly the same as normal nerves that people experience for different reasons. And for some people, it can stop as soon as they start the exam. Others, it can carry on until they get the result.
Yeah, I remember having a student who I passed on to you. I'm not going to name any names, but she logged into an exam and could not answer a single question in the exam because she was so crippled with nerves that she just sat there, didn't answer anything for 2 hours and then logged out and was like, I'm never going to do that again.
Yeah.
I forgot to tell you, she just started on with Neve. She's just passed all of everything.
Amazing.
She's now a full mortgage advisor advising, so I meant to message you and I
so
totally forgot. So is a little bit of anxiety helpful?
Yes, absolutely. So there's a graph called the Yerkes-Dodson bell curve.
Called the what now?
Yerkes-Dodson bell curve.
Okay.
That's after the two people who did the research into basically why anxiety can contribute to peak performance. Mm-hmm. So no anxiety at all correlates to boredom, unproductiveness. But then on the other end of the scale, too much anxiety can shut down our rational thinking brain. So that can be just as much of a problem when it comes to exams as no anxiety. So the goal is not to completely eliminate the anxiety, but it's to manage it so that it stays at a level which enhances your performance instead of hinders it.
Okay, so it's keeping it within, like, your rev counter on your car.
Yes,
is that the idea?
Yes, that is exactly it.
I don't know how accurate this is, and this is not my official advice, but from some students that I've had that have really bad anxiety, I've said to them, just have like one drink before your exam. And I'm not going to lie, for CMAP 3, that's what I did. And it's like leveled out completely and I was just felt ready.
Yeah, I mean, obviously alcohol can calm our anxiety short period. It depends. I think for some people it can completely switch off the thinking brain.
Yeah, which is not what you need for CMAP.
But for some people it can just calm your nerves. So for those people, yeah, maybe. I do have other alternatives that would probably be a little bit better for an exam, but if it works for you, it works for you. I think with alcohol, it can exacerbate your anxiety once the alcohol wears off, which is why, as an anxiety coach, we don't normally recommend alcohol. However, like I said, if you don't suffer with anxiety other than for a specific exam and your brain works better after one drink, then I'm not going to tell you not to do that.
It's the sweet spot. Like, I can't play pool until I've had a glass of wine. After a glass of wine, I will shock anybody on a pool table, but 2 and I'm useless again.
Exactly. That is where you'll be on the Yerkes-Dodson bell curve with your alcohol. You'd be right at the peak.
Why do some people feel pressured and get exam anxiety, whereas some other people are just fine with it? What's the deal with that?
So, a couple of reasons, really. Some people have limiting beliefs about themselves. They worry that they're not good at exams, or that they're not clever enough, or they don't have a good memory, which makes them panic that they're not capable of passing. So these kind of thoughts can spiral and create more anxiety. Other people get such strong physical symptoms when they're worried about anything that they can't concentrate at all because they're unaware of how to calm the symptoms. So other people don't really get anxious at all. Those kind of people tend to have more positive thinking patterns. So they'll still get the physical symptoms like the butterflies in the stomach, the racing heart and things like that. But they will interpret it as excitement or anticipation rather than anxiety or worry. So it doesn't really spiral for them.
It's really funny that you say that because I've noticed that people's self-belief is the difference between them passing and failing. With my students, especially from my last kind of 3-4 masterclasses, the ones that have gone in going, I'm going to fail this exam, it's so hard. They have the exact same training as everybody else in the room, but they are way more inclined to fail. Versus the people that go in and go, do you know what, I'll give it my all. Worst case is like 180 quid resit, which is a lot of money. But they go in with the belief of, okay, actually, I think I've got this. And then they go in and they have a much better chance of passing. And it's the same material that's given to each.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where, like I said, the thoughts and the feelings spiral when they are so afraid. You know, when they're allowing their anxiety to create these negative thoughts and feelings and they don't know how to calm it down, or they don't have that positive self-talk, it can spiral and just shut off your thinking brain. So you can't sort of think.
You can't get past the negative beliefs.
Yeah, exactly. And you just can't pull what you actually know from the right places in your brain because your brain's focused on this overwhelming anxiety.
It's wild. So if we've decided that alcohol is not going to be your main recommendation, what would you say for people if they want to calm their nerves in the run-up to an exam? What would you recommend?
So I would do the revision in bite-sized chunks because otherwise it's going to be overwhelming.
Yeah.
If you're trying to do all of it as quickly as possible and retain everything, it's just not going to work. Do regular breathing exercises that calm your nervous system daily, such as box breathing, but I can teach you how to do that. There's a few breathing exercises that I take people through on my TikTok or my Instagram, and these really regulate your nervous system, so they'll just sort of calm you up to the run up to the exam.
That's such a good idea. You can have it saved in your little TikTok folder and come back to it for your exam. Yeah,
definitely. And it's good to find one that works for you, like your favourite one, because if you practice it daily when you're not stressed or when you're not overly anxious, if you get to the exam and you start to feel a bit panicky, you can remember how to do it because you've been practicing
because you've been doing it.
If you just hear about a breathing exercise and you think, oh yeah, that sounds good, and then you try and do it in the moment, you're not going to be able to do it because your thinking brain's already switched off. So you need to practice these kind of things when you're not anxious to be able to use them.
When you are. That's really interesting.
Yeah, definitely. What else? So I would say make sure you get regular exercise, eat well, get enough sleep. All of these kind of things help you to perform at your peak. In one of the courses that I'm building, I've got sections on these things from experts in their fields. Yeah, I mean, it sounds so like cliche, but it literally does work.
Yeah.
You know, making sure you're looking after yourself.
my students that you've worked with have all said the same thing. Like, the 24 hours before their exam is just as important as everything else, because how you hydrate, how you eat, and whatever your practices are seems to be the kicker for people.
Yeah, definitely. And you don't even realise it. It sounds so...
woo-woo.
Yeah, it does, but it's literally... It does work. Stress can build up in our bodies, and if we don't have an outlet, then we can get to a point where our stress bucket overflows and we just can't function properly. So another way to release stress is to speak to someone about how you are, or, you know, speak to your friends, speak to your family, speak to someone who's also going through the same thing, or just write it down in a journal. Just sometimes getting it out of your head makes it seem 100% better already.
It's like when you can't solve something and then you start talking to somebody about it and then end up solving it yourself just by saying it out loud.
Yeah,
it's the same principle.
Yeah, exactly. We do an exercise in coaching where you say if you're going through an issue and you can't figure out like the solution, you would imagine yourself floating out of your body and watching yourself within the same solution. And the amount of people that can actually just say, "Oh, this is the solution."
No way.
Just by looking at it from a different perspective. Crazy.
So you've done a lot of work with CMAP because you've built something that we'll come on to in a second. But the two biggest bits of feedback I tend to get from students is either their brain went completely blank when looking at questions, which happened to me, and the biggest thing is getting like 5, 6, 7 questions in a row that you don't know the answer to. Everything that you do online, it's usually like you answer the question and then it's like, correct or wrong.
Right, yeah.
And you get that little endorphin boost that's like, whoo, I got it right. But in your CMAP exams, you have to sit 100 questions and you've got no idea whether you got it right or wrong. And they're really, really hard. I've had people log out of their exams halfway through and been like, I failed this, what's the point? How do you combat those like that?
Yeah. So with the blank mind moments, I would say, first of all, do one of your breathing exercises that you've been practicing to calm your body and mind. This will just bring you back to the moment. Read the question slowly or break it down into parts. And if you still feel like you can't recall the answer, just flag it and move on.
So there is a flag button in people's exams for anyone who's not sat it before. In the software that you sit your exam, there's a little flag feature, which means you can review all of the questions at the end, and I recommend that to everybody as well.
Yeah, definitely, because I think if you just spend so much time on that question and you just, again, your anxious thoughts will just spiral. So yeah, just flag it and move on. If you've read it a couple of times, you can't break it down and your mind's still blank, flag it, move on. Take a deep breath, go into the next question with a fresh mind. It's likely that it was just that question that you couldn't answer in the moment. It might come back to you as you do more of the exam. And also try and remember that you don't have to get every single question correct. So try not to let that make you panic about the rest of the exam.
That's a really good tip.
As for bouncing back, like I say, you don't have to get every single question correct. And most people don't. So try and remember that it is okay to get a few questions wrong. And for the majority of people, this does happen and they still pass. So, yeah, just take a deep breath, move on to the next question and go back to it.
Just keep going.
Just keep going.
I would say to people as well, stay in the exam for the full amount of time. So many people, because you get, for CMAP 1, you get an hour for your first 50 questions and then an hour for the second lot of 50.
Yeah.
I've had people that have been like, I sat the whole exam in 17 minutes, could that be why I failed? Probably yes. Yeah. So staying in the exam, because it's uncomfortable being in the exam.
Yeah.
And you kind of just want to get out of it as soon as possible because you're like sweating and you're freaking out. So staying in the exam for the full length of time, whilst painful and probably boring, I think is the best thing that people can do as well.
Yeah, I think it's about becoming comfortable with being uncomfortable as well. Obviously, anxiety is not a nice thing. Everybody's going to get a little bit nervous, but knowing that is okay.
Yeah.
Not just freaking out and going, I need to get out of this as soon as possible. But that's where your breathing techniques and your grounding techniques come into play as well.
For anybody who's listening to this podcast that's sat their CMAP exam and has not passed, what would your advice be to them if they failed before and they're now going in for round 2? Because that's got to play on people's mind. Yeah,
definitely. The I failed before, so I'll fail again mindset is so common, and it's totally human when we've failed at something before. But failure is not a permanent identity, it's a temporary experience. So if you think every successful person has failed more times than they've succeeded, you only need to succeed once. The key is to separate your past outcome from your current potential. So this might mean doing things differently than you did the first time around. You've now got the upper hand really for the next exam because you know why you failed last time. It could be time management, a specific topic, anxiety on the day, lack of preparation. But now you know you can work on this so that you've got a much better chance of passing next time. So try changing the language you use. For example, if you keep thinking, I failed before, try instead, I've learned what doesn't work for me and now I'm doing it differently. And that small shift in self-talk can be a massive game changer. You can even use affirmations to solidify your new way of thinking. So,
Love a good affirmation.
Affirmations as well. Yeah, so for people who don't know, affirmations are statements that we repeat over and over again that create new neural pathways in our brains. So we start to think more positively about ourselves or situations. So I did a TikTok about this recently, and basically it's writing down statements that you want to be true. So it might not be true right now, but things like, I can pass this exam, I am capable, I can do difficult things. You can even put in, I am a mortgage advisor.
Yeah.
Because then it tells your brain that you are a mortgage advisor. A top tip for affirmations is put a sentence in there, or a couple of sentences, that are actually true, because it tricks your brain into thinking everything else is then true that you're telling yourself. So, for example, for me, I could say, I have a 14-year-old daughter, or I am a mum with blonde hair and blue eyes. And then, like I say, it tricks your brain into thinking all of your affirmations are true.
Affirmations to start with is like, when do you do them? Because I always feel like a bit of a tit stood in the mirror trying to brush my teeth, trying to say stuff at the same time.
Yeah.
And I found that actually for me, if I stick them in my headphones in the gym, that's like where I prefer to do them.
Yeah, that's really good.
Between me, myself and my headphones, and anyone else in the gym can't figure out what's going on. Is there a sweet spot or a best time to do them?
There isn't really. I think it's whatever works for you. For me, I do them before bed. Anything that you read or learn or listen to before bed within the 20 minutes before you go to sleep usually sticks better. So again, that might be good for a revision, but actually on second thoughts, maybe not, because you don't want your mind running on, running too much before you go to sleep. But with affirmations, they are quite calming, so they work pretty well. I always do mine before bed. Some people do them first thing in the morning. If you are a kinesthetic learner, then listening to them while you're doing something like you do in the gym is perfect, because you generally take things in better while you're doing physically rather than reading or writing. So there's an app called Think Up. I don't know if you've got that.
I haven't.
You can record your affirmations in your own voice.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, so
is it free?
No, I think it's like £2.49 or something like that. So it's not too expensive. It's a bit annoying when it's not free though, isn't it? But yeah, listening to them in your own voice is even more powerful.
Oh, I did not know that. I'm going to record my own. You just mentioned something called a kinesthetic learner.
Yeah.
I just wanted to touch on that for a second, because that's to do with somebody's learning style, right? And this is a big part of what I want to work more with, because for me, studying for CMAT, and I failed numerous times those exams, and getting back into the game was hard, but I realised that the textbook or somebody sharing a screen with a slideshow on just did not work for me.
Yeah.
Which is why the audio files and the podcast are so successful, and that's something that I'm going to be stepping up with my relaunch of the e-learning with all of these changes.
Yeah.
But how much do you know about the learning styles? What are the learning styles?
I actually don't know that much about them. I know what my learning styles are. So mine is visual and kinesthetic. I think the others are audio. There's another one, isn't there?
Yeah, there is one that's you literally learn best from reading, which
yeah.
is not most people's learning style, which is why schools and the general education system fail so many.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are either kinesthetic learners or listeners, and that's why, if you can go out and walk the dog or go to the gym and listen to something that's going to help you learn, that's what ticks most people's boxes. For you guys who are not sure what your learning style is, stay tuned, because I am going to be putting like a comprehensive quiz together, kind of like those quizzes that you do at 2 o'clock in the morning to find out what kind of pastor you are, on either TikTok or Pinterest. It will be the same thing, but it will help you figure out what your learning style is, and then there will be a guide as to, if you're studying with the textbook, how do you accommodate for that based on your learning style. So stay tuned for that. But just to link back around to all of the exciting questions that I had planned for you, burnout. A lot of people with CMAT, studying for CMAT, report burnout, because a lot of my students are parents. or they're already juggling a full-time job and they're looking to completely retrain in a totally different industry.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips for those guys?
Yeah, I think it can be really tempting to study. You know, when you've decided on this path, you just want to get it done, but this is what causes burnout, especially if it's taking up all of your free time. And even more so, like you said, if you've also got another job and children and everything else that life throws at you. So I think it's really important to study in manageable chunks and also take some time to relax. Obviously, you need to relax as well, otherwise your brain is not going to take things in. It's like when you go to the gym and you work your muscles. If you don't have that relaxation time, you know, it's just not going to work. Also, my personal trainer tells me all the time. So, yeah, it not only lets your body rest, but it lets what you've learned sink in as well before you go on to the next topic. Yeah, I would say that really, and just looking after yourself as well. You don't have to learn everything as fast as possible, just making sure that everything's manageable for you and your lifestyle.
It's really interesting because a lot of people say, like, everywhere that I read, it's like, do 1 hour study session, then take a break.
Yeah.
And I'm studying for stuff now, and that's too much for me. I've found that actually I need to set 2 timers for 15 minutes each, and I can study for 15 minutes and then switch up how I'm studying for 15 minutes. After half an hour, I'm knackered, I can't do any more. Don't make me do another half an hour, it doesn't sink in.
That's exactly the same for me. I can do 15 minutes at a time.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know if that's genetic or other
maybe.
people get that as well, but no, 15 minutes, and then even if you just stand up after 15 minutes, have a little walk around the house. Brew,
put the washing on.
Yeah, go to the toilet, I don't know. Do your affirmations.
You say to people who are trying to build confidence at the minute to sit their exam?
I would say the things that I've already mentioned, your affirmations, just doing it in little chunks so that you learn a bit and then test yourself or get someone to test you on that bit so that you know that you're retaining that information.
Yes, like flashcards. Give your flashcards to your partner and like ask me what this says.
Yeah, definitely. Stick post-its up around your house. So like write something on a post-it note, stick it on the toilet door so everybody sees it, and then
everybody suffers with seeing that.
Get your family to ask you about stuff, because once you start to realise that you're retaining the information, that's when your confidence will start to grow with it.
Yeah. So it's just repetition then, isn't it, really?
Yeah, definitely.
How can you help students? Because I have a lot of students that I pass your way, but it isn't all of them. Because I'm like, for some people, you're just a bit nervous. That's fine, that's normal. You know, do a little bit of breath work. Make sure you feel fully ready. And nobody's ever felt fully ready to sit CMAT because it's such a hard exam. But for those guys that know that they are crippled with anxiety and actually the content is not their worry, the worry is their own anxiety, how can you help those people?
What their limiting beliefs are. Usually they'll always have limiting beliefs if they are crippled with anxiety. You know, it might be they just can't do it, or they might believe that they can't do it, they might believe they're not clever enough, they might believe they're not academic, those type of things. We also then look back to see where this has come from. So a lot of the time they will have had a past experience that has made them believe that they're not very good at something. So we break that down, and usually it's wrong. It is a limiting belief.
And it's just come from something. It's almost like therapy.
Yeah, it's exactly like therapy, yeah. Just looking at where it's come from and changing that thinking pattern. And a lot of the time you don't even realise that you have these limiting beliefs until you start to dive deeper into why you've got the anxiety. So as much as like obviously the breathing and the grounding techniques, which I'll go over with you in a minute, can help anyone with anxiety, looking at where it comes from can stop that anxiety happening, like going forward in all the other things that you might be nervous about in life.
Amazing. So give us a quick tip then you said you were going to come into something that would help people. Let's finish off with that.
Yeah, okay, so do you want me to go over these breathing and grounding techniques?
Whichever one you think whichever one is the one that you're like, actually, this is the best bit of advice I could give to somebody.
Right, okay. So, with the breathing, you can either do a really quick one that I can teach you, the double breath. Uh-huh. So, this is a really easy, simple thing, and toddlers do it all the time, as you know. So, when a toddler is screaming, crying about something,
they do that.
Yes, that's exactly it. So that's a really quick way to regulate your nervous system. So if you start getting really anxious and panicky and you just go, and then a longer breath out, So it's, for people listening, it's like
2 breaths in.
2 breaths in. So you breathe in and breathe in again, and then a long breath out.
And you get dead close to the mic. Hang on 1 sec. So it's like...
Exactly like that.
Yes.
Then that will regulate your nervous system and bring your brain back onto track.
No, why is the double breath important?
I don't even know the answer to that. I just know it works. Basically, you've got something called your vagus nerve, and this connects your brain with your heart and your digestive system. So it calms that vagus nerve. So your vagus nerve sends signals from your brain to your heart to your digestive system and back up again.
No way.
So when you do that double breath, it just calms it down and slows the signals down. Like I say, there are other breathing techniques that people can see on my Instagram and TikTok, and it is just about finding the right one for you and the one that you resonate with the most. As for the grounding techniques, that is just about noticing things around you. So it might be, look for 5 things that are your favourite colour in the room, and it'll just distract your brain and bring you back into the present moment.
That's another good top tip.
Top tip.
So for my students who realise that actually they are part of the Crippled with Anxiety group, where can they find you?
So you can find me on Instagram and TikTok at Tierney's Coaching.
I will link all of this in the show notes as well, so people don't have to remember.
Thank you very much. And my website is www.tierneyscoaching.com.
Perfect. You have also built, which we haven't even spoken about yet, complete anxiety mini course for people sitting their CMAP exam. So it's not even like if you're sitting a exam, this is what you need. This is specific for the CMAP syllabuses. So we've done a lot of work together on this, where I've told you all of the ins and outs and all the big feedback, and you've built a whole course for people who feel like they're just going to fail, not because of their knowledge, but because of their own limiting beliefs. So I will link that in the show notes as well. It's a lifetime access course, so once you've got it forever. You can use it for CMAP 1, 2 and 3. There's loads of great exercises in there. You've broken down the exams in there as well. There's just loads of good stuff in there. And as well as that, can people book one-to-one coaching? I know the answer to this because some of my students have, but tell me about it anyway.
Yes, I do one-to-one coaching. It's £60 per session, which is usually about an hour. If a student needs a little bit longer than an hour, then that's absolutely fine. It can be up to an hour and 15 minutes. But I do one-to-one sessions for people as well, for CMAP and also for generalised anxiety.
My students, in fact, all of my students that have booked in with you, they've only ever done one session anyway, haven't they? And then they've been like, I don't need you anymore, it's been great, thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you just have exam anxiety, and it's just about your exam, we can cover it in an hour.
Yeah.
If it's crippling anxiety that
takes over your whole life.
So if it takes over your whole life, then obviously it's going to take longer to...
It's kind of more like therapy then, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Some people have had a couple of sessions and been like, oh my god, that was a revelation, I'm fine now. Other people have regular sessions. Sometimes we have to go back to something that's happened in the past. Sometimes they are worried about what if this, what if that, so sort of future worries. So it's just about changing thinking patterns around that.
Amazing. Sam, thank you so much for this episode. I know it's your first podcast appearance and you weren't sure how it was going to go, but I think everybody is going to love it. So if you've listened to this, guys, please make sure you leave us a 5-star review. If it's not 5 stars, don't leave a review. We don't want you custom here. And make sure you subscribe so I can keep giving you more of these specials, and just drop us a comment if you've enjoyed this episode. Thank you so much, and I will catch you for the next one.
Thank you so much for having me.